I, Volume 6, Bible Story by Arthur S Maxwell. My book has two women on a terrace or on a balcony. One looks worried in the back, and the other one has a letter, and she has her arm up, maybe sending off a bird or something. Leave it up to your imagination. Okay, and we are in part 1, story 9, Writing on the Wall. These stories are always really good in in Sunday school that I remember, and I always like these a bit. Okay, part 1, story 9, Writing on the Wall. Now Nebuchadnezzar lived after he made his decree praising the King of Heaven. We're not told. You can look it up how long he lived after he disappeared for those 7 years. It's probably in the Bible. In history books. But like everybody says, they don't want to clarify it. Okay? Some say 1 year, some say more. But we don't know that when he died, the glory of Babylon. We do know that when he died, the glory of Babylon died with him. His son, evil Murdoch, yeah, Merodach, evil Murdoch was a weak king, and was very as were those who followed him. They lived for pleasure, forgetting that there were powerful enemies waiting for the first sign of the empire's decay. Sorry, my reading gets so bad. Not long after Belshazzar, or Daniel, came to the throne, he called, wait, Belshazzar? Is that what his name is? Okay. Not long after Belshazzar came to the throne, he called all the leading men of his kingdom to a great festival in the royal palace. At least 1,000 came. The best food and wine in Babylon were brought to the tables. A heavy drinker himself, Belshazzar set the worst possible example before his guests. Soon many of them were drunk, behaving shamelessly as people do when they had taken too much wine. As the night wore on, the scene in the banqueting hall became more and more wild and noisy. Men and women shouted the praise of the gods of Babylon, and drank again and again in their honor. There were music, singing, dancing as the feast moved to its climax. By and by the king, very drunk himself, ordered his servants to bring the gold and silver vessels that Nebuchadnezzar had taken from the temple at Jerusalem nearly 70 years before. With laughter and joking, they were passed to the people at the king's table. Wine poured into them, and the king and his guests drank it, jeering at the God of whom these vessels once were dedicated. Suddenly a cry of fear rang through the hall. All eyes turned towards Belshazzar. He had risen to his feet and was pointing towards something on the wall. Look, he cried, over there, by the candlestick. See the handwriting on the wall? Dead silence fell. The banquet was forgotten as everybody looked at the direction the king was pointing. What is it? Whispered some, pale with fright. A hand, others cried. See, there it is, over there, over there. Soon a small Soon all saw the terrifying sight. Screams of horror arose. Slowly the mystic figure moved across the wall, leaving a message written in letters of fire that blazed in the semi-darkness of the banquet hall. Shaking from head to foot, his knees knocking together, Belshazzar shouted for his astrologers, Chaldeans, and the soothsayers to come forward to read the writing. They came, but even though the king promised them great riches and honor, they could not tell what the writing meant. Everybody was worried now. That is, that this was some evil portent, they were sure. Yeah, portent, they were sure. But of what? Some guessed one thing and some another. Swiftly the story swept through the palace as terrified servants passed it from one to another. It was awful, they cried. We saw it ourselves. And then dots. The finger of a man writing on the wall. Nonsense. Go see for yourself. The writing is still there. The king will make you the third ruler of the land if you can read it to him. A maid burst into the bedchamber of the queen mother, daughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Breathlessly she told what had happened and how the king was almost out of his mind with fright and worry. The queen mother decided to go and see for herself. The writing was still there. She took one look and turned to, and then it's a nine. I can tell it's a nine because of and it's a 2 page. And the reason why I say it's a nine is because of the comic book. And plus the lady. That's what the bottom look. And there's the writing on the wall in in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. They must have really looked it up to find out. She took one look, then turned to Belshazzar and bade him not to worry. Call Daniel, she said. He will tell you what it means. Even since she was a little girl, she had known and loved Daniel. It could be that he had told her about her father's dream and their meaning. The spirit of the holy gods is in him, she said. Nebuchadnezzar made him master of the magicians. He can interpret dreams and dissolve doubts. Call him. So even though it must have been far past midnight, the king sent for Daniel. Soon as the prophet arrived, now an old man, bearded man, and now more than 80 years old, said Belshazzar, if you can read this writing, I will clothe you in scarlet, put a chain around your neck, and make you a third ruler in the kingdom. Keep your gifts said Daniel. Yet I will read the writing for you. And he did. For first he told the king what the Lord thought of all his wicked ways. Thou, O king, he said, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. And then pause. But when your heart was lifted up and your mind hardened with pride, he was deposed. Okay. When his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened with pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and there's pause. They fed him. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, until he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men. And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart, though thou knowest all this, but have lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee, and thou and thy lords, pause, have drunk wine in them, and thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold and brass and iron, wood and stone, which see not, hear not, know not, but the God in whose hand thy breath is, and whose are all thine ways, hast thou not glorified. Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and this writing was written. So it was the God of heaven who had sent this message. The hand of an angel had written on the wall. White with fear, still trembling from head to toe, the king waited to hear what God had said. This is the writing that is written, said Daniel. Many, many tekel up Harrison. Now let's listen. Many, many tekel up Harrison. I know my southern tongue is bad, but Mene, and then Tekel, and then Upharsin. Then he told the meeting. It ran like this: God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Thou art weighed in the balance, and art found wanting. And then it has a picture of the king and his king mother. A second. And she's telling him about Daniel. That's the illustration. And she's pointing, go find them. Okay. Then it says, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. What a pause. All eyes turned to Daniel, to Belshazzar. What would he do now? Bring the scarlet robe, the king commanded, and the chain of gold. This man shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Even as he spake, however, loud shouts and the clashing of swords came through the open window of the banqueting hall. To arms, cried the king. The enemy is upon us. It was too late. Drunken guards had left the city gates open. Now the Medo-Persian soldiers were swarming everywhere, with no one able to resist them. That night Babylon fell. Belshazzar was killed, and Darius the Median took the kingdom. Yeah, Darius. And then, of course, it has a picture of him, of somebody coming in. King on horseback and the soldiers. Okay, and as always, that's the end of the story. So that's the end of part 1, story 9. So we're going to go to the next story, and we'll see you in a bit.